Up, guys, James Carter TV, continuing my 2016 NFL draft recaps, and today we are talking about the Houston Texans. Now, if you were subscribed to my channel and you watched my draft recap videos that I made immediately following the draft, you're going to see some discrepancies here, because as I've sat down and I've looked at the Houston Texans draft class, and I do this for each draft class, by the way, after the draft, I like to go back and I like to scout players that I was unable to scout because I was too busy studying physics and calculus and computer science months ago, but now I can really key in and focus on these prospects. So I've changed actually quite a bit when it comes to the Houston Texans, more than other teams, and you will see that on display, I should say, when I give you my grades for the Houston Texans draft class. Overall, I think it's a fine draft class, but I think there are some misses here that might hurt for the future. Let's get into it now. Let's start with their first round pick, the 21st pick overall. They moved up one spot from 22 to 21, and they took wide receiver Will Fuller out of Notre Dame. Initially, I gave this one a B+. I thought it was a B+ pick because I was thinking to myself, and I thought, okay, they have DeAndre Hopkins, who is a guy that is a nice guy that can get you those intermediate routes, an occasional deep ball, but really is a guy that wins with his size, not his speed. And then get a speedster here in Will Fuller. But the more I've thought about it, and the more I've sat down and I've watched Will Fuller, I'm just not a big Will Fuller fan. And I question how much success he's going to have at the next level in the NFL. I'm not sure we're looking at a guy that's ever going to be able to post 1,000 yards. I mean, he's sitting at 6 foot, 189 pounds. He's not very physical. People want to compare him to Deshaun Jackson. I was even aboard that train, but he's not that physical. And I think he's going to have troubles and issues going against physical cornerbacks in the NFL. He had huge issues going against the Clemson cornerback, Mackenzie Alexander, who went in the second round to the Minnesota Vikings. This is a guy, Will Fuller, that isn't very physical. He's going to have troubles winning intermediate routes whenever cornerbacks are pressing him, being physical with him. He'll win the deep routes. He'll definitely win those because he'll just rely on his speed to do so, and he's shown a better ability to catch the football. But the more I've viewed this pick and the more I've thought about it, I like it less and less, and I'm not sure when it comes to, like, when you look at the first round wide receivers, right? You had Corey Coleman, who I'm not a fan of, and I haven't made my Browns recap video, but it's coming up. You have Corey Coleman, and then you have the three wide receivers after that: Will Fuller, Laquan Treadwell, and Josh Doctson, that all went 1, 2, 3. Actually, Josh Doctson went before Laquan Treadwell, 1, 2, 3. And you look at that 1, 2, 3, man, Will Fuller is going to be the worst of those three. I mean, we have to be honest. I mean, Will Fuller just does not possess the type of elite talent in terms of affecting the game in multiple ways like a Laquan Treadwell or Josh Doctson has. And even though Laquan Treadwell and Josh Doctson are similar wide receivers to DeAndre Hopkins, I feel the Houston Texans would have been better served getting the more surefire prospects than just the guy that can be juxtaposed against DeAndre Hopkins. I think they should just went with the better wide receiver prospect here. I just don't have much faith in Will Fuller at this point. And I think that's why they, later on in this draft, they double dipped at wide receiver, which we're going to get into in a second. But I end up only giving this Will Fuller pick a C+. We move on to their second round pick, interior offensive lineman Nick Martin out of Notre Dame. They double dip at Notre Dame. They get the interior offensive lineman and maybe even the better prospect out of Notre Dame. I mean, this is a guy that started many games there at Notre Dame, was a leader for that offensive line, a guy that's hard to move, and a guy that likes to move people. And I think he's going to be a key cog on this Houston Texans offensive line, which has needs at center and potentially guard. Who they drafted Xavier Su'a-Filo a couple years ago, who has disappointed up to this point. They lost Ben Jones, center Ben Jones, in free agency. Who Ben Jones also played left guard in the past. So now or maybe it was right guard actually. But either way, a guy that played center and guard in the past, you replace him with Nick Martin here, who has higher potential than Ben Jones ever had. So I really like this pickup for the Houston Texans. A little bit of a reach, but overall, I really like this pick, and I give it an A-. Okay, so we're stepping it up here. Then we move on to the double dip. And initially, I hated this pick by the Houston Texans. That's wide receiver Braxton Miller out of Ohio State. But again, when I watched, I looked at Will Fuller and I looked at Braxton Miller and I said, man, I think Braxton Miller may give you more at the NFL level, because this is a guy that actually has some physicality to him, a guy that can run multiple routes and not just a one-dimensional player at this point. He is raw, and he's going to need to be coached up, and he's going to be a prospect and a project for you, and he may not play much because he's scheduled to be the number 4 wide receiver on your roster starting day 1, and the problem is not many people are going anywhere anytime soon. DeAndre Hopkins, you hope, isn't going anywhere soon, anytime soon. You look at number 2 wide receiver now, presumptively, Will Fuller, who you hope isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and Jalen Strong, who you hope isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So when will Braxton Miller finally get on the field? That's my biggest problem with this pick. And also the fact that you double dip, because I think you didn't need to double dip. If you should have got one guy that you trusted, that you said, we're going to get this guy out on the field, he's a complete wide receiver, and you combine, I think, the talents of Will Fuller and Braxton Miller, you may have been able to, hopefully, if you would have combined them, right, you could have gotten Corey Coleman. You combine these two skill sets, you get Corey Coleman, right? And that's probably who you wanted. He was unavailable. I think maybe you would have been better served maybe trading down in the first round and taking Michael Thomas out of Ohio State instead of double dipping at the wide receiver position. I don't think both of these guys are going to be good. I think it's going to be one or the other. I think it's going to be a dog-eat-dog situation in Houston. One of them's going to win. One of them's going to be a bust. I think that's the future for both of these two. I give both picks a C+. I give this one a C+. I give the other one a C+. I think one of them will pan out. I think one of them will be a bust just because there's too many young wide receivers in Houston right now, and the fact that they have similar skill sets. Braxton Miller is more of a guy that is readier to, maybe not even ready, but is closer to doing those short and intermediate passes and routes, and Will Fuller's more of a deep guy, but they have some similar skill sets in terms of just raw speed. Will Fuller's, he's a 4.3 guy, while Braxton Miller's a 4.4, high 4.49, maybe 4.50 guy, but man, I don't like the pairing here. So I think you would have just been better off getting a Michael Thomas, a Laquan Treadwell, or Josh Doxson, just taking one wide receiver. Okay, we have our wide receiver and we're good to go. Instead of getting these two guys, that hurts both of their grades, and I give them both a C+, but I'm sure one of them will work out. I think one of them will. All right, we move on to the 4th round. Tyler Ervin out of San Jose State. This guy was an absolute steal, I believe, for the Houston Texans. He was a guy that I looked at as a sleeper. He went in the 4th round, which was higher than I thought he was going to go, but I think he absolutely deserved to go in this spot. A guy that has some nice athleticism to him, can catch the ball out of the backfield, put up one of the most impressive numbers during his combine workout, has some fluidity, good footwork. I think this is a guy that could really develop and end up being a huge challenger to Lamar Miller in terms of being a starting running back for this football team, probably mid to late season. Don't be surprised when Tyler Ervin really makes his name known. I gave this pick an A. We move on to the 5th round. And they had 2 picks in this round, and then that was it. We have safety KJ Dillon out of West Virginia. Another nice athlete. I see athleticism being a big deal during this Houston Texans draft, outside of Nick Martin, who's a guard, so it's fine anyway. And Nick Martin, who really used to be athletic before he had his knee injury over at Notre Dame. So athleticism is a big thing for this Houston Texans draft, and they take KJ Dillon. And this is a guy that I think has a really nice potential to him. He really got a lot of playing time when Carl Joseph went down with his injury, and he really showed out. Questions though, he's a little too eager against the run, needs to develop better instincts, and hopefully that comes with more experience and play time. But I think this is a guy that can make his impact known on special teams and eventually challenge for a starting spot in the future. Probably not this year. I give this one a B+, and we move on to their last pick, nose tackle DJ Reader out of Clemson, a guy that's standing at a prototypical nose tackle size at 6'4", 6'5", 325 pounds. So he has that prototypical size. You have Vince Wilfork, who is scheduled to start this season, but after this season you're going to start looking at DJ Reader to be that nose tackle guy. I think he has that ability. You just wish he was more productive at Clemson. Didn't have enough production for me to absolutely love this pick, but I like the pick. I think you have a potential nose tackle here in DJ Reader. So When we look at my GPA scale, I put in these grades and it spat back out a 2.87 out of 4 GPA. One of the lower ones I've given. But again, I think one of these wide receivers will pan out. I think Nick Martin will pan out. And then Tyler Ervin, KJ Dillon, and DJ Reader, it just depends on circumstance and all of that. I question the 2 wide receiver picks. Like, if they would have just taken, honestly, I think you could have gotten away with taking Laquan Treadwell. Again, I know he's similar to DeAndre Hopkins. I get it. But why is having 2 DeAndre Hopkins a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? And also, you look at Brock Osweiler, everyone wants to believe, right? He's 6'7", 230-something pounds. Everyone wants to believe, okay, this is a strong-arm quarterback, Brock Osweiler. He's not. This is not a guy like Jay Cutler that sits down and just likes to launch the deep ball to Will Fuller. He's not that kind of guy. He's a guy that really uses the short to intermediate routes and throws. So I don't think Will Fuller's a good pick there for him. And then Braxton Miller is still a project at this point. So taking both of them and then hoping that they can both really learn how to play the wide receiver position, I don't love it, man. And that's why they both got C+. Again, I'm sure one of them will be good, but man, I know for a fact in my heart that one of these guys is not going to work out because of circumstance and the fact that they still have a lot to learn in this upcoming NFL careers, respectively. Until next time, James Carter TV, I'm out. Peace.